Today's Jim Cinematic Universe first episode is What If? The statue killed the captain before the events of the film. It goes after the dragon. What if back in Lego Fortnite, we end up fighting a statue? So in today's What If, we are going to see what if Lord Colossals was the main villain of the original Jim the Komodo Dragon film. Back in the first film, Jim the Komodo Dragon would be in a huge storm instead of attack. Jim the Komodo Dragon would be in his little village. He was raised by the tiger tooths then, and during this time, it was a really bad storm, and Jim the Komodo Dragon had to take shelter. Really bad. So he ends up going to the tiger tooth castle and take shelter. And he'll just sit there until the storm passes through. He'll just sleep in his house. But shortly after he woke up, he would get a strange sense of something. He noticed that the storm is barely passing through, and he wants to know what was going on. However, in the original timeline, Jim the Komodo Dragon would go to find a way to defeat Buck. But in this scenario, Jim the Komodo Dragon has to go fight Nalo, who is the leader, who is an evil statue, whose nickname was Lord Colossus. He discovered his kingdom would be up there because how high it is. But during this timeline, Jim was a nobody in his village. Every time he would try to fit in, they would boo at Jim and call him a freak. Because in the original film, some people did not like him because of him being a dragon. In this universe, Jim will still have his blue lightsaber at the time. In this one, Jim the Komodo Dragon will go up there, find out where Lord Colossals is, and he ends up going to the spot where he later fights his father, the Overlord, a couple years later. As he arrived, he ends up encountering Lord Colossals, who is in his regular form at the time. Together, they'll get into a fierce fight. It was called the Showdown History. After Jim defeats Lord Colossals in his regular form, he would go back down, but right when he was about to leave, he noticed some rumbling going on. Colossals would go into his giant form, and he would attack the dragon. And in this timeline's final battle, because fun fact, in the original plans for the original Jim film, Lord Colossals was going to be the main villain instead of Captain Hook. However, due to him being pretty powerful and Jim having this, the plot somehow made no sense. So he ends up changing it from Lord Colossals to Hook. But luckily, however, he ends up being the main villain in the remake. Hey. In this one, Jim will use his lightsaber, but right as he strikes Lord Colossals, so his lightsaber ends up getting crushed. Jim the Komodo Dragon's fight was pretty fierce. Ugh. Jim the Komodo Dragon would also call his fight with Colossals the ultimate showdown of history, like how he said in the original timeline. However, this timeline is different when Jim the Komodo Dragon encountered Lord Colossals. Jim will also be badly wounded. After Jim's fight with Colossals in this timeline, his lightsaber was pretty much damaged, but not damaged enough. And Jim is in the hospital, and he wants to go back out there and fight, but he was told no because his friends told him that it is too dangerous. Even King Tiger Tooth told him it's too dangerous, and he told him he might need his help in order to defeat him. However, though, he ends up encountering Colossals, but unfortunately, he ends up bringing an arm. He ends up going into his final form, because one touch on Jim, because what Jim didn't know is he might have lost a piece of his skin, but luckily he regenerated, because he discovered Lord Colossals wants to use it, and he's going to destroy the realm with it. And another fun fact, in the second Jim the Komodo Dragon movie, Lord Colossals was originally going to return to destroy the universe, be the villain of the second film. But unfortunately, due to Jim not evolving enough, it got scrapped. Jim ends up going up there to fly to destroy him. But right as he got there, it was unfortunate. Too late. Right as he arrived up here, Lord Colossals ends up going into a super dragon form, who now has the same powers as Jim the Komodo Dragon. Because in this timeline, he ends up sending Captain Hook to do it. But in this timeline, and Jim the Komodo Dragon knew he cannot beat him. He ends up using all of his power to destroy him. Jim ends up using his powers to destroy him, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough. He has used Jim's powers. Oh. He ends up going into a fierce showdown with Colossals in his final form. But unfortunately, he overpowered Jim, and Jim was about to lose his life. Jim ends up using the magic. Unfortunately, Jim could not beat him. He has done he even lifted Jim in the air, knocked him out. But that wasn't enough, because Jim fought harder. But unfortunately, right when he was about to win his showdown with him, Colossal in his ultimate showdown form, who now has Jim's powers in this timeline, officially plans to overpower him. Yeah. And right when he was about to kill off Jim, he ends up using his final form and reminds Colossus it's over. He says, "It's over, Nalo." It was called the ultimate showdown of history. And Jim ends up striking him down with his lightsaber. He struck Lord Colossus down and gave out a loud roar. This is Jim the Komodo Dragon What If.